this one down here. Okay. And we've got Venus. Uranus to Venus is incredibly one of the most shocking ones in your life. It's your emotions, it's to what you want, it's to your love, it's to your finances. Uranus conjunct square opposed to Venus can be, the classic two interpretations would be like a divorce or a bankruptcy. Everything you built up that you wanted, it shocks what you want. It shocks your choices. You're not getting what you want. Someone lets you down. How could you? Someone sees someone else, something breaks up. How could this happen? I'm thinking it's emotional shock. Huge. Changes your values. That's the healing part. You're attached. You're wanting things you don't want. You don't belong around. You don't deserve anymore. It doesn't come any. You thought you had it. You thought you were safe, and suddenly it changes, and you're having to. It's forcing you to find new values, even though you don't want them. But these are the sudden losses and sudden shocks. So the conjunction can be a sudden, exciting new relationship or a new vision or new breakthrough of things, but it still is breaking away from the old. I want to move here, I'm changing, I'm going here, but it's dealing with your emotions, your values, your appearance, your looks, what you want, the way you make choices, and suddenly it shakes it up. When it's on the conjunction, you're ready to make something new happen and let go of the old job or let go of the old relationship, so you have to be free. Even have the affair or whatever, like you're breaking free. Who cares? I need the excitement. I'm bored. But it can break things. But you're the catalyst more at the conjunction. But sometimes it can be, if you're not going on it, you can still get hit by other things at the conjunction. But the squares and oppositions are certainly the emotional shock, the financial influence. I get people, if they're in the market, I get them off the market for that year or two because they're going to take sudden losses. If someone's trying to get married, I say, just get divorced, just get engaged and leave it for a year or two. Give it a long engagement. If someone's on the edge of divorce, someone's having an affair, someone's partner's having an affair, or the relationship is breaking up, I'm saying, let it go. Get over it as fast as possible. The faster it happens, the sooner you get out of the worry. But it's hard to let go of what you want and not judge and not be upset by the hurt. So often you let go at the first hit, then you get back again, having another, you're trying to work it together again, the second hit and it breaks up, then you let go, then you try and get back again, and finally it might take 3 hits to actually let go of a relationship or let go of a love or so many, you could be married and like 20 years and suddenly all of a sudden there's a knock on the door and some kid you gave up for adoption 20 years earlier has come around, tracked you down, trying to find their mother, and your family and parents and husband doesn't even know you had another relationship or had a kid. Oh my goodness, huge shocks. Okay, so it's to Venus. My Venus is on the IC in my 4th house in Sagittarius. So it really affects my security. So when I've had my breakups or shocks, it hit my motivation. I get deeply affected by these things. So my first one was I got the square first, and my dad had his lung removed. I quit school. I wasn't going to go back. I was really angry. I even got disrupted, got in trouble with the law that year. And then I decided I'd go back. I'd work at the Royal Bank. Then I had to talk with my dad. Then my parents split up. So my whole family all split up just when I was 14, 15 years old. So that was really socially disruptive, affected the rest of my life in terms of I had to learn how to establish relationships and meet people on my own later. And whether I learned or not is still up for debate. After 3 divorces, it's hard to say. But it's not that I haven't had my love. But that was a very shocking time. And even during that time also, at the last hit of that, I think, at the last hit of that, I found I had a girlfriend for those 2 years while that was going on. And we just hugged and kissed. We never really consummated or anything like that. I had a girlfriend, but a month before the graduation, I found my girlfriend in the arms of my best friend who's been my best friend for years. So on this last hit, I lost my best friend and I lost my girlfriend a day before the graduating high school, and I just left in shock. So that broke up all the values, but it was my incentive to leave. It changed my values. So when it was time to leave, and a few years later leave Toronto, leave Montreal and travel, it was no problem. It was more promising than the shocks that I had. When I hit the conjunction in 81, first hit I got married. Then I was at a big conference lecturing. Then I was the founding member of AFAN, and I had given away the library to a spiritual group, but I took the spiritual library back. These were huge new beginnings, what I valued. It did have its repercussions because taking the library back threatened my wife and eventually caused the end of the relationship, because we lived in a place and the library came in, it took over most of the space. But at the same time, they were real breakthroughs in starting new organizations, being part of things. It was exciting. It was emotional connections. It was really exciting. And inside it was really opening up. It was mutable many things happening, a lot of traveling. It was happening at that time. And I remember at one of the conferences, I was sitting down and I was sitting at this conference and I was sitting at the table and there was 7 beautiful women, all astrologers sitting at the table and me. I'm surrounded. And we were just talking, well, yeah, I have Uranus on my Venus, and it was just how you think. Then someone came down, another guy came over, sit down at the table. I was just explaining it, and I'm instantly threatened because I've been set up that this is my circle of the excitement. He sat down at the table and we were explaining what happened. He said, well, my Uranus on my Venus too. He walked down at the same table at the same time. Just funny little stories. But there, my values and ideas were changing from just doing my own thing to being part of conferences to founding organizations to taking on commitments around libraries. My values just got really broke through and changed things at that time. When it hit the square, there were disruption relationships. I wasn't having relationships, but I had moved. I started having drum workshops. I was having my son. I was working with AfroFest. I did a lot of things with drumming and with music at that time. It was disrupted because I wasn't getting the support that I wanted from the astrology. I wasn't getting the emotions. It was the relationships. So it was coming through more through drumming and music. And in the end, my mom came home and stayed with me for a while. It was disrupting, but it was still transforming. But those were the things that changed my values distinctly. So you're looking, when it's emotional shock, these are like really classic words. When someone's coming up to that, you're getting them ready for it, to not set it up, to not take the risk, not push everything that far, or push it and let go. But at some point, you're gonna have to let go. But it's not a stable point to invest. If you invest when Uranus is on your Venus making conjunction, square, or opposition, it may be a breakthrough, but you're breaking away from something, but the new isn't exactly stable either. So it's hard to know you're bringing that instability or shock with you. What would be an example? Yeah, in founding AFAN, I was one of the founding members. We're involved in the politics and the board meetings, sitting down, setting up the minutes, all this stuff down in Chicago. And but after setting it up, after 4 or 5 years, even after 10 years, I was involved with it, but it never really did. It became what I thought it was going to be. It took other turns and it was different than it was supposed to be. So at some point, I had to break away from it. I'm still a member. I'm still a founding member. I broke away from my heavy involvement in it. I lost some of my enchantment or value of it and went on in other ways. But this emotional shock, it's a big one to see. It's to see this. Someone's going to come there in emotional shock. They're seeing it. Then they want to hold on to everything, and they're worried, and they're having to let go, but they don't want to let go, and they can't let go. It can't be this, can't be. And they're going to bounce a few times till that's finished. And once it's finished, when your emotions are let down, you can't think straight. You can't have confidence. It hits a real deep, profound part in you. Then you have to rebuild in little ways. You have to the letting go becomes the important thing. Because if you're not letting go, you keep being hurt. It keeps them back like salt in a wound. It keeps them back, making it worse until you finally let go, making it more insecure until finally go. These are your broken heart things. Broken heart times, shaken up times, and you're very anxious in trying to change them, but you're not stable even in your own emotional judgments or choices. So the choices you make, Venus choices, become unstable by the Uranus. It can be catalytic. But even in founding AFAN, I spent several years putting their mailing list together, doing all the paperwork and all the mailing lists, collecting it all. And then the group decision in a day, they decided they wanted to have the mailing list controlled from inside the States. And I got let go of it and never got reimbursed for anything of that. It was a big shock, from the group that I was one of the founders of. So all kinds of funny little things go on. But this is just an example it's my world. It's boring to talk about. It would have been more exciting to talk about yours and say, oh, that happened to you. Then how did it happen the second? What happened the second time? What happened the third time? But that's what you do when you're seeing somebody and talking about these things. You're walking into it and you're walking into their anxiety and shock. You have to be able to look at the dark things or the anxious things or the crazy things in a person's life to be able to get back to what's normal, what's Saturn, and to give them responsible advice. And to work around it. Sometimes you have to go with it. And then when do you get back to being responsible again? When do you break free away from things? Uranus changes what you want. But when you're in a relationship that's smothering, you're going to want to get free. If you're in an unstable relationship, you're going to be sitting there holding on because you're anxious and insecure and you want to hold on to it, but it's not getting more stable. And this goes on for a year to a year and a half. These are 4 times in a lifetime. So you can see these times 21 years apart in a lifetime, they'll stand out. And when you remember them, you'll see them clearly. So this is the emotional shocks. Now we're going a little bit later. I'm still going to go a little bit later. I want to get at least, I want to do Mars for sure. Well, we'll run through them all. We'll just take a little bit longer. Okay, Mars. Okay, here we go. With Mars is how you do things. It's your use of force and energy. What's Uranus going to do to your Mars? It's going to disrupt it. Uranus opposing Mars makes accidents, fights, blow-ups, rages, rashes, burns, fevers, cuts, disruptions to your energy. What you're trying to do gets blown up, gets sabotaged, gets broke, or you trip. Like there's big changes going on in the way you do things. Mars is your desire for experience. Uranus, when it conjuncts, you're trying to break through to be independent, do your own thing. You're pushing it, you're making it happen, and Uranus is there making you push it to take extreme measures and be much more independent in what you're doing. Of course, the more independent you're doing things, the more force you are independently, the more other people are having to react to it. Not everybody's going to necessarily be pleased with it, but you're on a wave and pushing it on the conjunction. It still can be unstable, but you're still pushing things. Mars can be related as an adult to what you're doing for business. I'm doing this, I'm working at this, I'm doing. It can be what you're doing for business. It can be what you're doing for sex. It can be what how you're physically working out. Mars can be so many things, but it's going to change your Martian ways. But normally we don't stop pushing. If we're pushing too hard in sports, we're working out too hard. We won't stop that hard work until something breaks. We break an arm, we pull a muscle or something. We're forced to slow down and deal with the pain. So Uranus to Mars is the classic accident-prone one. It's also the time of breakthrough, of exciting. And I'm going to try something I never did before. I'm going to go skydiving. I'm going to go fly a plane. I'm going to go take off and I'm going to do something. Like, it's exciting. I'm going to be independent. But you're going to be totally intolerant to anything that holds you back or anyone that gets you in your way when Uranus is sitting in Mars. It's not patient. It's an accident waiting for it to happen. It's a volatile explosion waiting for a reason to let go. It's like you're just ready to blow and do something. So usually if you've been working on ahead of time, I got to do my own job. I'm going to set up my own business. I'm going to do my own thing. I got to do this. On the conjunction, you're trying to break through and you're trying to work towards doing that. If you have the straight job, then you have to do something exciting on the side, but your physical energy has to change. But when it squares are opposed, you run into the shocks. Oops. Oh my God. Something shakes, but the accident prone, the disruption, the shocks, the broken, it can break a career, but it's usually with a fight with someone and blows something up and breaks something. You can't do that anymore.